What's up? Coach Dan Blewett here. Today we're going to talk about how to throw a great curveball. And if you don't know how to throw a curveball, this is going to be a big step up. I also have an amazing online course, so definitely check that out as well. But today I'm going to give you 5 really big tips that are going to be extremely important in your development of the pitch. Okay, so let's jump right into it. Number 1, let's talk about your grip. So your curveball grip is not the most important thing. Let me just get that out of the way right now. Clayton Kershaw, his grip is going to be mostly the same as my grip, as mostly the same as a 12-year-old's grip. It's not the grip that makes the pitch. Now, the grip is really key in helping you get comfortable with it. So if you have one grip, maybe you can spin a little bit better than another, but ultimately the grip is not what produces an incredible curveball. All major leaguers throw very similar deviations of the same grip. Definitely understand that the grip is important in helping you find your personal best way, but it's not going to be the end all be all, and if your curveball is not very good, it's probably not the grip's fault. So let's talk curveball grips. So the biggest thing here is getting the middle finger to come up this seam here, and then the thumb is typically going to be on the inside down there. This way, we're going over top the ball like that, and catching on the inside of the seam and underneath the seam of the thumb is going to help us do that. So with the curveball grip, we've got a bunch of different variations. You can just go just like this, and this finger can stay on top without putting any pressure on it. We can cross it over, we can stick it up, we can knuckle it, or we can dig it. So any of those grips are fine. It's completely your personal preference on what you choose to use. Second, let's talk about the spin of the pitch. We don't want pressure going through the center of the ball. The reason we don't want that is because we want all the pressure on the edge to produce topspin. Topspin spins forward. This is the spin axis that we want. We want the ball spinning directly in the direction that it's traveling, either to 12-6 or 1-7 orientation. The way a curveball breaks is that as it's traveling, say this way, if it spins with a good fast spin rate and a good clean spin axis, then what happens is it creates a high pressure zone on the top, a low pressure zone on the bottom, and the high pressure air pushes the curveball down. So the faster the ball spins, and the better the spinner, or the better the spin axis is, those two factors are what create a higher high pressure zone and a lower low pressure zone. That's going to force the curveball down better. It's going to make it break faster. So the faster you can spin the ball and the more cleanly you can spin the ball with one axis, those are two factors that are going to majorly impact your curveball. All right, next let's talk about how hard you should throw a curveball. This one's simple. Throw it as hard as you can possibly throw it. And this is something that's difficult. You have to really focus on it. Every year when I was getting ready for spring training, I had to work hard to throw my curveball harder and harder and harder. I would use the radar gun as a tool, knowing that if I was throwing 88 in the bullpen or 90 in the bullpen, that I needed my curveball to be something like 15% slower than my fastball. So if I was throwing 90, my goal was that my curveball was always in the 75 to 80 range, trying to throw it as hard as I possibly could. And the reason that we want to throw a curveball as hard as we can is a couple reasons. Number 1, the curveball is a deceptive pitch. The batter's going to think it's a fastball until it's not. So when you throw it slower, it has to take a higher trajectory initially to then make it still into the strike zone. So when we throw our curveball, the harder you can throw it, the longer it's going to basically track down the fastball's path, making it look like a fastball a lot longer. So when you throw your curveball slower, if you're going to throw it for a strike, it has to go up before it comes down. But the harder you throw it, the less it has to go up before it comes down. That's the basic thing you need to understand. Number 2 is the physics of the pitch in general. The faster you throw it, the more that Magnus effect takes effect. And so the Magnus effect is the high pressure, low pressure thing we discussed. So the harder you throw it, the more physics and the air pressure and all that stuff is going to push the pitch down. So you throw a slow curve, even if it had tremendous spin, it would not break as sharply in the hitter's perception as if you threw it slower. So again, you always want to throw the curveball as fast as you possibly can, both for deception purposes, for trajectory purposes, and for actual break purposes. The faster you throw it, the more the high pressure, low pressure zone is going to take effect, and that's going to push the pitch down, and that's what a curveball essentially is. Number 4, how does a curveball actually come off your fingertips? I teach kids to try to get their fingernails to the front to try to release the ball like this. It doesn't actually happen like that, but that's a good way to think about it when you're throwing a curveball. Because what you don't want to do is be off to the side and throw the quote-unquote little league curve. The little league curve is when we get around it. The big league curve is when we get to the front of it. Again, our goal is to produce forward spin. And so when you think I'm trying to produce top spin, whether it's 12-6 or 1-7, or if you're lefty, if it's 11.5. We're trying to get to the front of the ball so that we can spin it the best we can. If we're thinking, oh, I want to get my fingers around it, because that's what actually happens when we're throwing it, you're probably going to start to mix in too much side spin, and the thing's going to get sloppy and it's not going to break as sharply. So make sure when you're thinking about throwing the pitch that you're trying to get in front of the ball, you're trying to get your fingernails towards the target, and that basically our goal is to get out in front here, even if we know that in slow motion, our fingers are going to slip to the side of it and then sort of right it at the end. So understand that what you can think about in trying to cue yourself to throwing a better curveball and what actually happens, they can be different as long as your goal is to produce the desired outcome, okay? Number 5, this is the biggest thing. How do you throw a better curveball? You have to just throw it. But the biggest thing about throwing it is having a partner who can give you feedback. So the process I work with, we don't have a ton of fancy drills. I've taught tons of kids curveballs, and a lot of them have really good ones. The process is not some bunch of tricks and weird drills and weird devices. It's about me as coach catching you over and over, giving you feedback about the spin, about the shape, and about where your arm is in space. So the big part of the process is playing catch with someone who may be better than you, who's maybe a coach, or who can just give you feedback and, based on what your parameters are. So ask your coach, say, hey, my ball is supposed to spin like this. You'll see this. If you see this, tell me please. I don't want to see my hand go out here. You should see my hand go out in front. You should see the ball spinning like this. If you see the ball spinning like this, please let me know. Having a really good catch partner who can tell you, oh, that one was sharper, that one was softer, that one was kind of slurvy in shape, those are really important things. So, and then the other thing is on you as a pitcher. As a pitcher, it's up to you to understand what the shape of your curveball should look like, what it should look like when it's good, what it looks like when it's bad. And that also comes from feedback, but it comes from understanding it. So if we know that my best curveball is a 12.6 or my best curveball is a 1.7, then if I start to see it breaking 2 to 8, I need to mentally pick that up because I'm focused and make an adjustment. So it's not just the grip, it's not just understanding the physics, it's not just the cues in your head, it's about really paying attention, it's about getting feedback from you and your catch partner to try to make an adjustment on every single pitch. So hopefully this video on how to throw a curveball helped you. If you enjoyed the video, please like it, share with a friend, subscribe to the channel. Definitely check out the links in the description below. I have a full online curveball course. It's got like 20 plus videos. It's here on YouTube. There's links to it. Check it out. It's going to take you step by step on all the other things I just talked about. So definitely check that out, and I'll see you in the next video.